here in the perimeter, there are no stars. Out here, we is stoned. Immaculate.
Hello and welcome. This is the C86 show. I'm David Eastaugh. As you know, we love a special guest. This week it's going to be the turn of John Kosh, who I spoke to very recently to find out more about life, love, poetry and all the other groovy stuff. A art director, album cover designer, graphic artist, documentary producer and director. Began his life with the sort of Royal Ballet and the Royal Opera House, but then was the creative director for the Apple Corporation for the Beatles, worked on their two albums, Abbey Road, Let It Be, John Lennon and Yoko as well, and then went on to relocate to LA and work with lots of people, including the Eagles, ELO, the Moody Blues, Rod Stewart, etc., etc. I'll put a link of his website in the notes below, and we'll talk a lot about his career. So anyway, you'll find out more about it. It is a fascinating interview. So after several minutes of interesting but casual chat, we get down to the exciting subject of the early formative years. John, it's over to you.
Well, I said I've been involved with music for. It's going to sound crazy to you actually, because when my dad was running a jukebox building and repair shop in Camden Town, I think when I suddenly started listening to all these 45s imported from the States, and I'm hearing Chuck Berry and American artists for the first time, R&B, real R&B, I mean, you know.
Yes.
I think that's when I suddenly realised there's more to life than, you know, just scribbling on paper.
Well, absolutely, absolutely. And so, what was your dad's profession? Did you say?
Well, he was an engineer. He used to work for Wurlitzer. Before they were a jukebox company, he used to work on their organs. So if you go to the cinema and that huge organ would arise out of the abyss, that would be my dad working on that. So
yes. So was he in London during the war period then?
Yes, he was somewhere, and he worked for de Havilland's. He designed the undercarriage for the Mosquito fighter. So he was in Britain, but probably secret actor. I have no idea where. You know?
Well, absolutely. So an engineer of multi-talents, basically. Yes. So when you got to 16, what sort of year was that? I don't know when you were born, actually.
I was born in 44, so you can work it out.
1944, my God, a year before the war finished, actually. Yes. Yeah, so where was your childhood then in 44, 45?
North London.
Right. So there you go.
Bomb Alley, yeah, right. We used to play bomb sites, you know, it was great fun to sort of get down into the...
Yes. Well, I would imagine London was scarred with sort of the remains of the war and various other bits. So when you got to 16, which would have been 1960, God, I'm doing the maths here. I know. Kind of, I had to scribble that out. Did you leave school at that age? Or, because, I mean, you know, school was probably was quite in its infancy, really, wasn't it? Schooling.
In school or art school? I mean, schooling, British education was in a dreadful state because most of the people who teachers had gone to war and hadn't come back. And so I was kind of lucky. I had a choice, actually, because I failed my 11 plus miserably and my 13 plus, whatever the next one is, you know.
Yes.
Choice really of either sort of joining the army and sort of getting killed in Suez or going to art school. So I obviously chose the lesser of the two evils.
Right, because obviously the art movement during the 60s, I suppose, was it Richard Hamilton at that point was one of the main pop artists, I guess, wasn't he?
Yeah.
And so what art school did you go to?
I went to a North London art school called Hornsey College of Art.
Right. So did you start meeting people like Barry Miles and Hoppy Hopkins?
Well, there was a whole sort of subculture of music going on at the time. I mean, the founding members of the Kinks were the Court School Band, because Muswell Hill, I was a Muzzy, you know. That all got wrapped up, and it was very interesting to see that if you look at all the art schools that were sort of putting out musicians and vice versa, and how art and music were getting wrapped up at the time. I guess that's how it all sort of worked. So my but my working for my dad, because when he got really sick, and I sort of got him sort of totally invested in the American sort of R&B sound. It was kind of weird because soon thereafter, when I didn't graduate, I couldn't because I had to, earn money. I started working for the Royal Opera House, which is kind of sublime to the ridiculous, or vice versa.
Right. So were you a designer at this stage?
Yeah, I was designing. Yeah, I started off as a paste-up artist in the British Printing Corporation. So I learned my craft as far as arts, commercial, the dirty word, commercial art was concerned. And then I applied that, of course, to the fact that I was working for the Royal Opera and the Royal Ballet. And then fortuitously, as the story is well known, I bumped into John Lennon, not physically, but and all of a sudden at Apple, it was discovered that they have no idea, having broken away from EMI, how to sort of get things printed. But I did.
You did. You had the knowledge. And during that 60s period then, did you sort of start to embrace the hippie movement and the counterculture, the counterculture of that period?
Well, there was several. There was the mods, the rockers. There's a lot of stuff going on, and the hippies. I mean, the Summer of Love, I don't think, was definitely an epiphany for us all. This is pre-ultimate disaster. We sort of got rid of all that. But yeah, I mean, it's just the whole culture in Britain, the pop art, the op art, the music, and the way it was all turning out. It was heady stuff. I mean, it was just totally overwhelming at the time. And being sort of young, callow youth with no responsibilities whatsoever, I just embraced it.
Yes. And at that stage, did you go to the 14-hour Technicolor Dream at Ali Pali in 67?
Oh, anybody, of course. Yes.
You were there, were you? Did you see Arthur Brown, Yoko Ono, bump?
Well, no, to tell you the truth, no, I didn't. It's very funny, but it was only like 2 or 3 years ago that I met Arthur Brown here in my street in LA. But still, never mind.
Yes. And did you sort of meeting people like Caroline Cream Cheese and Hoppy Hopkins and people like that?
Started working when I got away from the Royal Ballet and started working for Apple. That's when everything changed. And I was still involved with the arts movement at the time. So the Young Turks, because I was fielding the phones for art and artists, but phones. There was one phone. So I was speaking to the David Hockneys and the Rothbergs and the Rauschenbergs and and so I was very much involved in the avant-garde movement, and that's actually how I got involved with John and Yoko, because I looking after the magazine whilst the editor Mario Amaya was working on the Venice Biennale at the time, left me in charge of that phone. And I was speaking to all these people, and of course, one of the people I had to speak to was John Lennon, and that's how it all started.
Well, absolutely. God, that's quite a nice little connection, actually. And then, so what was this like 68 at this point?
Yeah, 68, into 69, yeah.
Right. So then we'd sort of had the Summer of Love experience, so things were changing. Right. And did you go to places like Indica Bookshop and those kind of galleries?
Yes, indeed.
And experience. And did you go to were there any happenings? Did you sort of bump into our friend Joe Boyd and go to the UFO Club and places like that?
I did go to the UFO Club once or twice. I wasn't exactly a club goer. I wasn't really. I mean, my transition into rock and roll was sort of slow in some respects. But all of a sudden, if you're working for Apple Records, as it were, then doors would open amazingly.
Well, I would imagine, actually, because there was a few... And performance artists were becoming quite the thing in the 60s as well. There was a guy in this area, East Anglia, Bruce Lacey, who used to sort of...
Professor Bruce Lacey.
Professor, indeed, actually.
Professor Bruce Lacey, yes, with his automatrons, or what do you call tomatrons, whatever you call those things. He had these mobile machines that would run around. If it heard your voice, they would chase you.
Yes, well, actually, interesting enough, I remember the BFI put out the Lacey Rituals a few years ago.
I've got to get that. Fantastic, yes.
Which has got all his work on, including his kind of a lot of his family. Because when he came to East Anglia, he'd sort of embraced the hippie movement. So he started doing a lot of kind of spiritual rituals, which kind of brought in any spiritual sort of practice he fancied at the time. It was kind of spiritual appropriation, but we were all happy and stoned, so we didn't mind, did we?
Happy and stoned, I must admit. Well, actually, I wasn't quite as stoned at that point until I came to the States when I got really stoned. But I mean, so I had a modicum of sort of intelligence going.
So what did you? So were you balancing the Royal Opera House and Apple, or did you eventually just say, "Look, I'm sorry, but I'm going to have to work for the Beatles"?
Well, what had happened was it was the Royal Opera House, the Honourable Kensington Davison, who I'm Ken, in other words, who became a friend, who introduced me to Mario Amaya, who was running Art and Artists. He was, in fact, he actually was he was from the Toronto Museum of Modern Art, and he suddenly said, "I've got this magazine. I'd like someone to design it. Would you work on it?" And so that's the transition. I got into the art world, and then to the John Lennon, therefore the Beatles. It was transitional. So yes, I couldn't do everything all at once. I mean, I had to give the British Printing Corporation, and and the Royal Opera House was taking care of itself. There's plenty of designers my age at the time, working for peanuts, as we all were, who were very good at their job. So my transition was sort of painless.
Yes, quite. So, what did you do at Apple? What was what was your sort of role? What was your 9 to 5? What was an average day like working for the Beatles?
No, it was more like 10 till midnight. I mean, I was told, John just said, "Go and find yourself a desk," but it was not easy because the place was like a beehive. I mean, it was a great place to work, I must admit. And it wasn't all sex, drugs, and rock and roll, though that sort of figured into it. It was a place of high stakes. I mean, we never missed a deadline. And my job was to make sure that the art, the covers, and the publicity and the promotion for their various artists, the Mary Hopkins, the MJQ, if you believe it or not, was there for a while. Badfinger, whatever, all came out on time and without any hiccups. And seeing as I was the only one there who knew how to put a mechanical together, this is the days before computers, of course.
Yes.
Outputs and spray mounts, which I've got a ton in my lungs still, and so I just evolved, and I just self-styled myself as the house art director,
Right. Well, someone had to do it. Yes, I know. Poor Badfinger. That was one of the worst stories in rock and roll, really, wasn't it?
Yeah, that's nice guys. Anyway, that's another story, I guess.
I guess it is. And then how long did that last for? Because obviously you would have been seeing quite a transitional period of the 60s. You went from the honeymoon period and the sort of lovely innocence to the sort of the end of a decade that sort of, became quite messy. What was it like kind of on an emotional level?
Well, I guess you never know what was coming next. I remember, so when we left the 60s, so it was 69, I guess I was working mainly for John and Yoko at the time, and got into Let It Be, which was called Get Back, which was going to be the Beatles' swan song. Therefore, that's why it's black, not white, to follow the White Album. Before Abbey Road got in the way. So I was so busy working, I was working for the Stones and the Who and whatever else, that I don't think they ever saw anything going on apart from the fact we had deadlines to meet, and it wasn't rock and roll a great medium to be working in. So I don't think the angst really hit me until way later, and I thought, my God, we survived that. I think it all went downhill with the Altamont disaster.
Yes, I was going to say. I mean, obviously things were brewing. There was Charles Manson and his little gang happening on one side, and then there was obviously some heavy drugs happening, and then death. People. Brian Jones died, and then you'd have had Hendrix, Joplin, Morrison all dying at an incredibly young age, and having sort of had 3 years of them being part of your life. I mean, we get a bit wobbly when sort of people die, but at least they're being spread out a bit. I mean, it's all getting a bit too much now, but then that must have been like one decade finishing and another starting. It can feel quite weird, but also the breakup of the Beatles must have been a moment, because most of the people would have just been, they've been our foundation for most of the 60s.
It wasn't a moment, you see. It was a transition. I mean, everyone at Apple could see it. It didn't stop the machinery working. I mean, everyone was working hard, working for the company, working for the the band, working for the lads. And even though the scandals were taking place and John wasn't talking to Paul, in fact, actually behind the scenes they were. I mean, I got stories that where things were good, backstories that were going on at the time. So to us, it was just a sort of a thing that took a few years to evolve. It was a train wreck, if you like, but it seemed to be a slow motion thing.
Right, you could see it sort of. So when was your sort of last day or week at Apple happen, or was it not quite that clear?
See, I was never employed by Apple. Okay, I would bill Apple. I mean, I was in and out of Apple, even though I had a desk which, if you left it, would disappear and someone else would take it. I would come and go as I sort of pleased, or as the jobs that were coming up warranted. If Mary Hopkin had to get something out by Wednesday, I'd be there.
Yes, well, absolutely. And did you have a whole team of people around you? Because at that stage, I mean, there was other places, weren't there? Like, was it Hypnosis was another kind of organisation that was in its infancy? Was there quite a community around you at that stage that you were aware of?
Yes, definitely my peers. There were, some very great designers working around Mick Robb, but all these people were coming up. I had no staff whatsoever. I was doing it with myself and my wife at the time, I had luckily managed to sort of snag the Beatles, which was like pretty damn good. But
it's a good one to start with.
Yeah, right. I think I was the only designer who worked for the Stones, the Beatles, and the Who, at one particular stage. But there's Hypnosis. Had Floyd. There was a sort of demarcation in some respects, but we all got along sort of pretty well with each other, even though we sort of lusted after each other's clientele.
Well, I would imagine there was a lot of lusting going on. So then you were coming up, with those designs like Let It Be. It was your idea, and you presented it to the band and said, "What do you think, guys?"
Yes and no, because sometimes there was no way of getting all four band members together.
I would imagine that was quite hard.
Yes, right. Particularly, Paul is in Scotland, George is moping somewhere, and Ringo's making Magic Christian or whatever movie he was on at the time. So for getting Let It Be together was a bit of a chore because there were no four Beatles to photograph. And, Ethan Russell had taken pictures during the session, so he managed to sort of get the grid together of the four. And I think George popped his head in and said, I liked it. And that's about as far as we ever got. Oh, Neil Aspinall, I think he kind of dug it as well. So that's about the only sort of direction I got was get it on the press now.
Get it going. Just let's hit submit and yes.
Leads are there and the logo's in the right place.
So then did people like Roger say, look, we love that, we want you to do our album now, or the Rolling Stones? Because you did, was it through the Pass Darkly?
Yeah. I mean, actually, I just don't remember, because I was friendly with Joe Bergman, who was their sort of tour manager, and I guess that she said, well, if he can do the Beatles, he can certainly help us, and I guess that worked out that way.
Yes. So what was your transition then from that late 60s, 70s? Then after the app, did Apple finish as a business sometime sort of early 70s?
Well, not really. It's still going. It's sort of changed, it changed its situation a lot. No, it carried on. I mean, there was still catalogue to get rid of, past catalogue and whatever else. So, but my dealings with Apple faded because I decided to come to the States, even though Apple's running in the States to some extent under the auspices of Alan Klein, so I sort of vaguely lost,
Yes. So how did you find yourself in LA? Did you have a connection, or did you have some sort of idea?
But I was actually working for Apple in New York, and one of those dreadful winters took place, probably worse than the one you're just about to go through. And I decided to visit the coast, to see what it was like. And I arrived here in December or wherever it was, and everyone's in shorts and wearing flip-flops. And I thought, well, this is much better, isn't it?
Well, absolutely. That was an easy sell.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, because Ringo was already over here. Rod Stewart was already over here. So I decided that maybe I should try and bust my way in, which was not easy, actually. I was just this, you know, upstart from London who had the Beatles. I was kind of resented at first, you know. Took a bit of, you know, working my way through the mill to get going and set up a business here.
So were you kind of freelancing, or were you just putting yourself around as a sort of potential freelancer for those first few
Yeah,
months?
I was employed by it was a company called Album Graphics, who were big, huge printers in Chicago, who actually employed me, and the excuse for employing me was to get me a green card, which didn't work. But anyway, so I was working for them as their creative director on the West Coast for a while. But you know, my other gigs started getting in the way, and I found out I was working, you know, 22 hours a day, as it were. So it was time to give up my day job and go freelance. And then it's time to, well, why don't I start my own studio? And that's what happened
Right. There you go. In LA.
in LA. Yeah. So
You called yourself Kosh Design.
Kosh Design then, yeah, I think before it became Kosh Design Studios, I'm kind of, Jen will give you the list because she knows all the dates.
Yes, I know. That's good. Someone's got the eye on. Yeah, it's got the facts and figures. So, who was your first? Because the music scene was changing quite a lot at this stage, wasn't there? You had that sort of Laurel Canyon sound. The sort of the rise of the singer-songwriter was coming up. You know, we were all getting very sensitive to the work of Joni Mitchell and James Taylor and Linda Ronstadt and people like that. Joni, yes. I mean, it was a glorious time. Did you sort of get into that kind of vibe?
Yes, definitely. That was the. In fact, I rode that crest. The way I was very lucky because Peter Asher, who was managing James Taylor and Linda Ronstadt over here, previously worked for Apple. He was the promotion guy on the top floor at Apple in London, so I knew him. And seeing as I was having trouble busting into the record labels here. Their art departments, as I mentioned earlier, sort of resented me. I decided to go for management instead. Went to see Peter. Peter suddenly introduced me to Linda. Linda and I got on like a house on fire. And so I started working for her. She introduced me to James. That started working well. And then Peter thought I was safe enough to be introduced to Irving Azoff, which gave me the Eagles.
Right.
I had some clout because you've got management behind you. And you know, so if Kosh walks into the art department and says, "I want this," he's likely to get it because management is going to say, "If Kosh wants it, Kosh is going to get it." Which I was therefore definitely riding on that crest of powerdom.
Well, absolutely, milk it. That's what we say. So, did you work also for Donovan before that? Was that a period in LA that you did your Donovan?
Donovan was in London, yeah.
Right, you did Cosmic Wheels.
Yeah.
T-Rex.
And T.Rex.
Dear old T-Rex, actually. I mean, poor old Mark was struggling at this stage in his life, wasn't he?
Well, yeah, I mean, I like the man a lot, actually. I mean, yeah, his glam thing. I think he was doing pretty well in the States. Cause I'm not quite sure because the glam thing had totally fallen, you know, out of favour in Britain. That's for sure. You know, so and
I think it had, like any music scene that I've sort of become aware of. You know, you have a few good years, and then the next bit is not the dross, but it's the stuff that people have like just latched onto, and it's like not so great, is it? Any musical moment, you know, like punk or. Yes, I don't know, grunge, I suppose you could say. The first couple of albums, first couple of years might have been great, but then after that it gets a little bit sort of weak, doesn't it?
well, yeah, some people start going into back catalogue and seeing what they've got, you know, and it's happening with the Beatles now. I mean, it's just like, and it's happening with Eagles. If you look at the stuff that, you know, they're now auto-tuning things and sort of, you know, re-releasing with new vocals, which I think is appalling, you know.
Yes, that is a rather strange thing. But you worked for Linda Lewis, didn't you? Who was I did an interview just a few years ago with dear old Linda that I've been trying to get because I really loved. There's a clip of the first Glastonbury, or one of the very first ones in '71, with Terry Reid, and Linda walks on stage and they do a number. Alan White is on drums, and. It was just an amazing little bit of footage of that very hippie moment in '71 at Glastonbury. But Linda, yes, so she started to have her solo career. So you worked on Lark.
I did Lark, that was the first one. Then was the next one, which was Fathoms Deep.
Oh, that's right. Yes.
Wearing a sort of diver's helmet, yes. Which not in America, though. They refused to do that package because it had a die cut and it was too expensive, yes.
Well, absolutely. Oh, that
I was
was.
famous for die cuts and cutting holes and destroying sort of, And of course, Jen just interjected Family, which is one of my great love working with that band. I did some really good stuff with them.
So, were
Family.
you coming up with the actual design for these albums? This was part of what your remit was.
Yes.
So
I'm
you
going
said,
to listen to music, get to know the artist, hope to get a rapport, get us established some trust with the artist, and then sort of start scribbling.
yes. And do you have to present quite a few different ideas? Do you have
It
to?
all depends, because every artist is different. Some artists want to get involved, some don't. It depends what it goes. If you know you've got it, you'll try and sell it. But you do have to realise that probably in the background there may have been 10 different ideas that you've gone through before you've even presented the one or maybe two ideas. As you know, that there's no point going there the other directions because you've already been there. And if they trust you, if the artist trusts you enough, they will understand that, that's the way it goes. Some artists can be difficult. Others will say, well, we like your stuff. We like the way we work. And then we like working together and the way you run a photo session. In fact, you cater it so well, the music's great and the food's fabulous.
Yes, absolutely. So with Roger in Family, did you with that album? It was Fearless, wasn't it? You put together. Was that an idea? Was that an idea that you came together with, or was that yours that you presented him with?
Have you looked at the back cover of Fearless? Have you seen that little dog in the back that says Daft, I call it?
No, I just seen the cover.
Okay, well, on the back cover is a tiny little dog. It says Daft, I call it. That's Roger's critique of my album cover.
Is that cheeky? That was yeah. Okay, I'll have a quick look. I need to look at this, don't I?
On the album, I don't whether the CD or not. I don't know. But, yeah.
Let's have a look. Oh, right, on the back cover, there's a dog. I did the back.
Tiny little drawing.
Oh, I see. Yes, it's a big blue one. This album is dedicated to all the people who have pulled strokes for or against us, for they shall be called fearless.
Right, that's the little blurb on the air, but there's a tiny, tiny little logo there somewhere.
Daft, I call it. I see. It's a little dog.
Because when he saw the album cover, he thought, well, Daft, I call it. That was his blessing.
Yes. Was that your main band at that time?
Yeah, well, I think so, because I just done Bandstand with the one with the TV that opened up. Remember that one? Had a screen on it with the glassine screen with silk screen type on it and all that sort of stuff.
Yes. So were you enjoying the LA lifestyle at this stage? Was LA suited? Did you go to Rodney's Disco, by the way?
No, I didn't. I know plenty of people who did. So, yes.
Dear old Rodney. Yes. It's sort of famous, isn't it, really? So the Eagles, obviously everyone loves the Eagles. If you ever saw the comic strip, you'll remember that line from it. So yes, how did you come up with this particular idea with the Eagles, Hotel California?
Yeah, probably because I was called in by the management, Irving Azoff, to listen to the title track with the band, which I did, and I realised obviously this is going to be a major hit. This was the title track, of going to be a single as well, there's no doubt about it. And Henley said he wanted something that sort of portrayed the lyrics. So something was kind of sunny, something was sinister. So a dear friend of mine, the photographer David Alexander, and I went scouting and we're looking for hotels and whatever else. And we came across this one particular shot that we took of the Beverly Hills Hotel from a cherry picker, feeding the meter below on Sunset Boulevard in the sunset. And it was so beautiful that I blew it up to the size of the kitchen table and just took it into the band, and they just said yes.
There you go. And was there any chat about not having the band's name on it at that stage?
Well, yes, I was infamous for that. No, it was... Well, I had made the point that we didn't need to put the Beatles band, the name of the Eagles, on the cover, because if you didn't know who the band were, by now. And the album was highly anticipated, and I think it had been missed like 3 deadlines or something. So it was definitely in the works. So it didn't need. However, the record company did put a label on the shrink wrap.
Right. They just in case, actually. Yeah, I think it was last year there was a book that came out which I did an interview with the authors called Buzz Me In, Inside the Record Plant Studios. And I think was that where the Eagles recorded the particular album?
Do you know, I don't know, because I never saw them in the studio, which is unusual for me because I normally do. I always met them either in my office, because I had this rather swanky office at the crossroads of the world in Hollywood. They would come to me, or I'd see them in their management's office.
Right. So did you ever go to the Record Plant Studios for any?
Yes. I've been to all the studios, the Golden Triangle, we used to call it. Yeah.
Right. What was that studio particularly like? Because it sounded quite extraordinary, having kind of mirrors on the ceilings, jacuzzis, quite lush bedrooms.
Yeah, it was a little more seedier than that, actually. Yes.
Was it more seedy?
Like,
that sounded all, it's like...
At least you feel comfortable in, put it that way, yes.
Yes, kind of... and was there a lot of cocaine at that stage in the mix in mid-70s LA?
Are you serious about that question?
Well, not really, actually. But I can't sort of assume because I wasn't there. I was 10. But I mean, was it quite a lush and happy time?
It was a happy time, yes.
And how were you dealing? You'd been 10 years. Well, no, not quite 10 years, but you'd been in the music industry for quite a while. And when you're young and you feel invincible, how were you dealing with this sort of potential excess of life?
Deciding that I really should start behaving myself, I guess.
Right. What, by 1975?
Well, no, not then. I think by 1981, exactly, in August 81, I decided I was going to behave myself.
Yes. Because apart from that album, which I can remember saving money to buy, there was the other one, ELO, A New World Record, which is another one of my absolute favourites. And I was watching a Jeff Lynne documentary recently where I think he's decided to re-record it for some bizarre reason. He thinks he can do better now. But yes, so they're very much a British band. How did you manage to get that particular gig?
I did in the States. I mean, because Ron Cass, who was running United Artists Records here, which was the umbrella for Jet Records. I was a friend of Ron when he go back to Applegate. He was the managing director for a while. And he invited me in, and I said, the first thing you guys need is a logo. So I designed the logo, which I put on the New World Record album, which then turned, of course, into the Flying Saucer and went off and still being used. But they keep changing it slightly so I can't sue them.
Oh, how annoying. Were you impressed with the Yes logo that they developed?
Roger stuff, yeah. I mean, Roger Dean, right. Yeah.
The Roger Dean posters, they were very famous in the 70s.
Yeah. I mean, he had a style. See, one of my style is I don't have a style, have you noticed that?
Well, I do, and Roger Dean definitely does have a cliched style.
I design for the artist and the music. I don't design for me. I'm not knocking Roger because his stuff's great, but as one of my beefs with Hypnosis was the fact they walked around with a portfolio of ideas, which they'll pull out and show to anyone, whereas I would like to go and get a brief and definitely think about it and spend some time with the band, go have dinner, get into it that way.
Well, yes, it sounds much more civilized and quite less formal.
Well, you have something which, because you're crossing the line, you're going to have something which the label are going to accept. You're going to have something which can be printed feasibly, and you're going to have something that the band loved well enough to come back again.
Yes. And sort of as you sort of became very aware during that period, sort of music changes, doesn't it? And suddenly 76, 77, the sort of punk movement steps in and there's a whole different look, design, energy. How did you navigate those moments where you heard the Ramones or this sort of Sex Pistols, the Clash, people like that? How did that sort of, tweak your design skills?
I always was into sort of dirty design because I used to actually teach at Otis School of Design here because it was a dirty school. I like that, But as far as I didn't leave the business so much as it left me. I'm an old guard now. When the punk movement came in, I belonged to a different generation, a different level. So I really wasn't acceptable, which is sort of how I eased into television and went somewhere else because, into the 90s. I just had to move on because I really wasn't, young enough. I wasn't a kid anymore.
You did my book cover.
Yes, there you go.
It's in the corner there, but I did design her book cover, yes.
Yes, well, that's good. Well, you'd hope so, wouldn't you? But then there's a couple of artists that I'm particularly fond of. Richard Pryor, who I remember, I don't know if you can remember when Channel 4 started and they had some quite exciting and slightly edgy programs that they played late. Richard Pryor on Sunset Strip or something. But you did one of his earlier albums in '76. Was that one that his management came to you for?
No, the record Warner Brothers came to me for that. Because they were too scared to touch it because of the title.
Yes, it's quite a a title.
I because I was used to dealing with awkward clients, or at least that's how the reputation went around. If you can deal with Don Henley, you can deal with anybody, So, or Rod Stewart, come to think of it. So I was sent to see Richard to sort of try and talk him out of the title.
How long did that last?
Well, I'll tell you, it's a lovely little story because Richard's caravan was on the lot at the Warner Brothers, and I had to go and see him and sort of knock on the door sheepishly, because this is one of my gods. And the door opens, and it's Richard, and he's sweetest, nicest man in the world. I spent a long time in his caravan. We were talking about stand-up comedians and who his influences are and whatever else. We were smoking a joint and having a great old time. And then he said, "Are you ever going to get to the point of you being here?" And I said, "Well, I don't quite know how to bring it up." And he said, "Well, I've got to tell you right now, the answer is no. What do you think of that?" I said, "Okay, that's all I want to know." We're not changing the title.
And then you went, right, okay then. And then you went away and just thought, this is your design for it.
Yeah. And I went away and, yes, he never saw it, I don't think. Anyway, we went away and I just was reeling. I've met one of the great gods of life. I met him, it's like you meet certain people thinking, you meet Dylan, you meet Pryor,
well, I would imagine special, very special. Yes, talent, incredible.
And I love that story because it's.
So look, I'm sort of talking of transitional artists though. Rod Stewart obviously went from sort of the Faces to, just some, Rod the Mod in the '60s to this incredible artist in the '70s, and then you obviously that captured his great transitional moment with Atlantic Crossing. So. Yeah. And actually, the second record, I told you the first one was Space Oddity. The second one was Sailing. I know, I have to confess, I thought it was a great song. I was 12 at the time.
It's okay. Atlantic Crossing was my story as well, coming over, So I put a lot, we put a lot into that. And I got on with Rob pretty well at that point. So, because being both Londoners, though he pretends to be Scottish, of course.
Oh, God, pretends. Jesus, he's just... today, he's all over the place because of Celtic Football Club.
Is he still wearing his kilt? Oh, dear.
Well, he's definitely swearing this... He's definitely very excited because they sacked their manager today, so you can,
Oh, which one was that? I've forgotten.
Well, he's only had 8 matches, and he's lost most of them, so they sacked him. So, but Rod was up there with his shirt on, being very happy.
Oh God, okay. So he's still drinking beer out of a bottle. Yeah.
I'm not sure, not at his age. But yes, so when this is a very stylized cover, which has a vibe of Goodbye Yellow Brick Road to it, doesn't it? A little bit of that shine, a little bit of fantasy.
I hadn't actually thought of that. Actually, that's true. Because Ian Beck did the Yellow Brick Road cover. He was a friend of mine. Also, we shared a studio, Ian and I. Who's a very well-known illustrator now and painter. But we still correspond, actually. But in my studio in London, he was actually working on that project for Elton at the time. So,
And this is a great period for a great moment, a statement, isn't it? Rod's this album is a big statement. He's got his was it Brick Eklund at the time as well, and he's all over the place with his short pants on and lusting around swimming pools, all looking a bit, like, gosh, what can I? Oh, it was all too much. But yes, so what was his ego like at that stage? And was he quite approachable?
Yeah, he was all right. I mean, I could get to him, but because I had the same accent, or at least I could put on the same accent. So, yeah, he was all right. I mean, he was. We got into a bit of a trauma at one point. We almost got to fisticuffs at one point.
Good. No, we like a few. You've got to get it out there, but not enough. But you did work on his second album, A Night on the Town.
Night on the Town. There was another one, wasn't there?
Yeah, you did. Was this kind of? Were you feeling posting? Was this a kind of a French? Were you sort of looking at some sort of French post-impressionist artist on this?
Yeah, I don't know why, but I think yes, I was actually. I was going through my impressionist period. I don't know. But it seemed sort of right to put him right in the middle of that scene, and it flattered him no end because he has that portrait on the back where he's holding his champagne glass. So yeah, I mean, I think at this point we were working well together. But I think by the time we got around to Footloose and Fancy Free, Britt Eklund was kind of telling him what to do most of the time, and that
right. God, it was a Spinal Tap moment then.
That's right.
Excellent. I love it. It's all good, isn't it, really? And the material's going down as well, isn't it? He's getting a bit... It's not such great... It's not such great album stuff on the album.
Yeah, but his voice is gone. I mean, he's as old as I am, for fuck's sake. Come on.
Well,
maybe older, I don't know.
Yeah, but not back then. In 77, he's
77. No, sorry. I thought you were talking about now.
Oh yeah, no, it's not pretty now, is it? But I mean, 77, he's.
But no, yeah, you're right. I don't know who was actually sort of. He went American standards, which I didn't think bode well, and I used to like him in the Faces,
Well, yes, I know that's that period. I mean, what I noticed, I don't know if you were sort of conscious of it, but I did see certain artists are great in a decade or period, and then another decade their work isn't so great. And I think of people like David Bowie, but even Rod. His 80s work, he starts with Body Wishes, which is the cover, which is rather...
Oh, yes, right, so I did, yes.
So was that... Obviously, it's the Elvis cover, isn't it? Did you... Was your heart very into that moment with him?
Yeah, I think it was, actually, because I just thought it was so obnoxious to compare yourself to Elvis that I thought I'd go with it, I actually got Nudie, who designed Elvis's suits, to actually make his suit,
Right, yeah. Well, he did have one big hit on it, didn't he? Baby Jane, which sort of broke into the charts.
Yeah.
And there was people like Mike Oldfield suddenly brought out sort of Moonlight Shadow, and it was like these kind of artists from another period suddenly managed to get onto the top of the pops, which was quite interesting.
Yeah.
But then what was happening for you then, sort of in the early 80s? Were you then needing to have a life change at this point?
A midlife crisis, maybe. Yes,
something like that. What was your 80s like? We had Thatcher, you had Reagan. There was a lot of passion going on.
Passion. Well, I also, I had a son going through college. I mean, I was working a lot for Linda Ronstadt, and I was very sort of out of... Rock and roll was leaving me behind, or rather I'd left it behind because it was moving on. A rap was coming in and it was too angry for me. I couldn't deal with it. And so I just sort of started looking at designing graphics, for television. And maybe thinking, well, if I can do the graphics of television, maybe I can do shows as well, and that sort of took me into the 90s. And then the early aughts, as they call it, I was very definitely in television.
Yeah, just as the 80s progressed, obviously you had Linda, but one of our favourite bands during that period was the 10,000 Maniacs.
Oh yes,
with dear old Natalie Merchant and crew. I mean, you did the album for that, this very sort of amazing photograph, all these children with bow and arrows. So was that through Peter Asher, who was the producer?
Yes.
Was that the connect? God, this is like Sherlock Holmes, aren't I here? Is
Yes.
that is that the link?
That is the link, yeah. And Natalie and I hashed that cover out together. She really knew what she wanted. So, I mean, there was a lot of research went into finding out what she wanted. And she was very much involved, sort of which picture of which kid with which bow and arrow from which magazine from the 30s would do the drop. So by the time I designed that little logo and whatever else and worked out the colours with her and things, I think she'd actually become disillusioned with Peter at this point. I don't know, but
Right.
we had a lot of fun. It was a fun cover to do.
And it was an amazing album, I have to say. It was just they were really on it at that stage. I mean, yeah, and incredible. Was that quite nice work with an artist from such a different sort of background to who you'd been working with?
Yes, because when you get that mutual respect thing, because you're working with an artist in the sort of genre, I keep using the word genre, that you weren't used to, and they're usually working with me, who they weren't used to, and in some respects, it's like building blocks, and it's kind of fun, to see how far each can push each other to their point of view.
Yes, and yes, it must have been quite a nice little. Yes, just having a completely different environment and community of people with no shared history, really, I would imagine.
Yeah, it's kind of fun. I mean, I must have, you never know what's going to happen, where it's going to go. But the point is, they are relying upon you to make sure that their product comes out as they'd like to see it, on time, practical and across the world and whatever else, and all the work that goes into the mechanics of it, that you're going to take care of it all, so they don't have to worry about that, and they can concentrate on what they're concentrating on, which is the music.
Yes, I mean, you did a few heavy metal gigs, didn't you? You did obviously Spinal Tap, Break Like the Wind, classic, and Aerosmith as well with their live bootleg.
Jen keeps saying things. What's that, darling? Oh, the Motels. Yes, she wants me to mention the Motels.
The Motels. Yes, absolutely. No, I was just looking at your sort of page of yes, you did Family Bandstand. So most of these are very iconic covers, aren't they? You must feel quite amazed when you put your website together to see all the work that you'd done over those decades.
Overwhelming, actually, because you suddenly think to yourself, "My God," because things that come out, like I forgot about that one. I find things in cutout bins, which is a bit alarming. Like, oh my God, I did that. It's got my name on it. I must have done, because someone started putting a sort of discography. What is the word of my work? Together, and they came up with so far 931 album covers. So yeah. Some of which are icons and some of which are definitely not.
Yeah, I mean, working with a band called Wasp, Wasp.
Okay.
I mean, very sort of stand out compared to all the other bits and pieces. Your James Taylor, Linda Ronstadt. What was your connection with such a graphic band?
Blackie Lawless, who's a friend, he ran into trouble with, I think it was Capitol Records, and they didn't know what to do with him, because he again was a allegedly difficult person to work with. And so their art department, Tommy Steele, who's also a dear friend of mine, said, "Go and see Kosh. I think he can probably help you better than we can." And so Blackie came, and I kind of liked him in a way. He was a bit, overbearing. So I decided to design him a cover, and what I would do, looking at the past crap that had come out, the really bad stuff that they'd had, I'd sort of follow in that sort of in those footsteps and come to something that I think we could, livable. And so I designed their cover with the skull, headless children, and I put it on the wall as a sort of 10-foot square. So when he walked in, it was, bang. And that did it. Oh, that's my cover. I love it. From that point on, we've been sort of friends.
Well, that's a good relationship. Another kind of artist that I also adored during that period, growing up period, was Minnie Riperton, because she'd done, I got the album Adventures in Paradise, and then you did her follow-up, which was Stay in Love, didn't you? And at
She
that stage, I can't remember what year she passed away. Actually,
very soon after I did that album cover, I think.
she passed away in 2 years later, didn't she?
Rudolph was her husband, right? Maya Rudolph. I remember Maya Rudolph sitting on my knee. So being 2 or 3 years old, yeah, I guess it must have been about 2 years later.
Yes. I mean, was that again? Did you work with her or her management?
I worked with her management, I guess, was her husband, Dick Rudolph, I believe. I'm not sure, actually.
Right. Because
You know, she wasn't well, I believe. We were going to put her on a couch and make her look pretty, and then the idea was I'd take that same couch and put it on the wall behind her. And we just went through a very, very easy, slow, friendly, warm photo session with no pressure. And we got a nice little photograph out of it. And there was no statements involved in the whole thing.
no, God, it's so sad. I couldn't believe it. Just
Yeah.
yeah.
Top C, yeah, right.
It would have been amazing to hear what she might have done later on with that vocal. But yeah, so with the Motels, which was another one of those LA bands from the sort of 70s and 80s, which album did you work on with that? Was that all for one?
Little Robbers.
What one?
Little Robbers.
Little Robbers. Oh, yes, I've got it. There you go. That was for Capitol in 83.
Yeah. Showing thigh, yes.
Yes. So then, sort of, after you mentioned sort of after the 80s, then were you just making a big career change into, did you say television?
Yeah, it was a slow change. And working mainly for award shows like the Billboard Awards. I would be doing the graphics, with the flying in from the truck outside the venue. Sort of hair raising and that stuff because it's live television, it's kind of scary. No drugs in those days, so tell me about it.
No. Had you totally cleaned up during the 80s period?
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
Right. There you go. My God, your television and film work, TV and film work is quite prolific as well. So what were you designing? The posters for these?
Yeah, and also the animated graphics. So when you see the Billboard Awards, the band strikes up and the award spins and the type flies in. That was all me in a truck outside the auditorium, sort of feeding it in, or feeding it uplinking if it's in New York, uplinking it via satellite from LA.
Blimey. So were you on your own at this stage, or had you got a team
I
of...
got staff.
You got staff and you were pulling it all together?
Yeah.
My God, you did sort of... You have created so many kind of moments, haven't you? It is quite phenomenal. Are you one of those people who's good at archiving your work?
Gin is.
Well, it's just, I went to the V&A to see the David Bowie kind of where he's put his archival part of it, and you thought, God, he's actually collected and he's kept all these pieces from the 70s onwards, which is quite amazing. And your work, again, it must be absolutely extraordinary. How do you sort of manage to file it, by the way?
Well, we've got filing cabinets all over the place. We've got a basement full of stuff, and a lot of it's electronic now. Of course, it's being scanned, and because some of it is because you have to remember that most of the stuff we were doing at the time is ephemera. I mean, it was never designed to be kept. Posters, billboards, and whatever else was thrown up and thrown down. All the billboards on the strip were painted over the next month. They're gone forever. So if someone didn't photograph them, they didn't exist.
Right, my God, that is extraordinary. And did you become, what's it, with design and in computers, how did you sort of navigate that period? Did you have to sort of start from scratch like most people, or did you get, help for that?
What do you mean start from scratch from what point?
Well, when computers suddenly started to appear.
Oh, well, that was a learning process. I mean, a learning curve. I was very lucky because I was teaching design at Otis, and my students, of course, were all versed in computers. So what I did, in fact, was I would pull my students out to teach me.
That's a great idea, isn't it?
Well, yeah, I give them straight A's for not showing up in my class.
Yeah.
They were brilliant. The 2 or 3 students that I actually managed to pull out. Now one's running sort of Technicolor art department. The other one's running somewhere in the Pirelli studios in Milan. They were all brilliant. But the point was they were students. They could run computers without losing their tempers, by not being frustrated. And they taught me that very, very keen sort of art of adapting.
Yeah, well, absolutely. I mean, your website is absolutely boggling. The bit with your logo designs, obviously ELO, but also War is Over, if you want it, and Hotel California, The Warriors, which is one of our favourite films as well. So
Yeah.
it's all
Only the
there.
lettering on the Warriors. That's all I did. I think
Pardon?
only the lettering, the logo itself. I didn't do any. Didn't do the campaign for that or anything.
No, but all the same, it was. You must. And with the famous Beatles going across the zebra crossing,
No,
was that? Were you involved with that?
yeah, I mean, Ian McMillan took the photograph. He was another dear friend of mine. He was Yoko's photographer, official photographer, and he took that one particular photograph. And there was 6 frames, and we were working on. I was working on the Let It Be package, and we had to drop that to insert Abbey Road. And the deadline was furious, and there were 6 pictures to choose from, And neither Ian nor myself thought this was going to be a Beatles album cover. Was this going to be good? And we were very concerned. It turns out to be the most parodied album cover ever. So I've got no complaints.
No, well, absolutely. I mean, it's beautiful the way you've got this kind of underground photograph with Kosh, and then you've got Hotel California, the Beatles, ELO, the Who, War is Over.
The other photograph with Kosh actually it moves. If you just scroll across it, it turns into a carousel. It moves across the screen. Don't know if you can get it moving.
Oh well, I'll try.
Sometimes it takes a while to get loaded.
Right, I'll have to go on that. And you sort of and so did you come back to the UK much during that time?
No, I came back to bury my dad because they were living in Wales at the time, and I brought my mother back here, and she hated the States, and I don't think I've been back since. No, sort of talking about 80 something. I was last in Britain.
In Britain, dear old Britain, really. So did you have much connection with Norwich, a fine city? Did you say? Did you ever visit Norwich?
Yeah, because I was all over the country when I was a kid. When I was an art student, or finding girlfriends and whatever as one does. One would take holidays and go to Wales, or we go to Norwich, or we go to Glasgow, or you just go all over the place. I had a souped-up Cortina, which it frightened the pants off you. It was so fast. And of course, in those days, there were no speed limits, right? So you could do 100 miles an hour on the M1.
Well, absolutely. While drinking and driving, it was.
No. Well, yeah, but lots of fun.
Yeah, it was a very different time then. Yeah, well, that was nice. So then, what have you got planned for this year and the next couple of years? What's your latest project?
As we've already heard this before, everybody. I'm working on my book. But it's not a tell-all. It's not a dirty laundry book, though it could be easily. I'm doing a book which is illustrating my work, but illustrating it as if it was in a gallery and you're looking at it for the first time. So in other words, if I put it up on the wall and photograph it, I'm getting out of a lot of copyright problems. But I'm actually sort of working into the art and reassessing some of my old art and what would have I done now if I could do this again, sort of look, But having fun with it, taking the piss out of my own work and also some of my friends' work too, just for the hell of it, because we're all mates still, even though once upon a time we were deadly enemies.
Well, absolutely. I think everyone suddenly thinks, why did we bitch about each other? But and there's a lot of, when you're young, there's a lot of competitiveness and...
Yeah, right. But now now we go drinking. Well, actually, I don't drink anymore, but you know what I mean.
Yes, well, absolutely. Yeah. So that's the next project. And do you think that will be the next year or the next couple of years, this publication will be out?
I hope so. Yeah, I mean, yeah.
You must have a lot of phenomenal photographs as well that you'll be able to use within
stuff. Yeah, we've got tons and tons of stuff. Yeah, I mean, I still accept a commission if I like the people who want to work with. I mean, that's the point. I'm not retired because I'd die if I retire. So if someone comes along, but I only pick and choose now. If I like to work with someone who I admire as a person, or is easy to work with, I'll take a commission. But no one pays the rates that I used to. Put it that way.
No, I guess you would have. You've had a
There's
yes.
plenty of kids coming out of art school who are just as good as I am.
Well, yeah, I know it's a different time. Well, look, this has been fantastic. Well, thank you for your time. I hope that wasn't too painful. You've probably told those stories before, but do, if you get a chance,
Yeah.
go to the BFI and get your Bruce Lacey rituals, because obviously that's a rather special moment with Bruce, actually.
Is he still?
Pardon?
Can't be alive, right? Is he?
No, he sadly passed away a few years ago. But his partner, Jill Lacey, or Jill Smith, as she calls it, she's still alive.
I just knew him at the Sigma Gallery. Do you remember that was on Tottenham Court Road, I think? And his crazy sort of robots. And that's, I've just met him a few times. And apart from Ali Pali, of course,
And that, dear listener, is just about the end of the interview. A massive thank you to John for giving me the time for that, chat, insight to his life, and hopefully he'll be bringing the book out very soon. This has been the C86 Show, David Eastaugh. Have a great week. Stay safe.